And did you get any chance to watch much of the Judiciary Committee hearings?
I didn't get a chance to see any of it.
The president watched portions of Judge Jackson's hearing yesterday and today, and is proud of the way she is showcasing her extraordinary. He was also moved by the grace and dignity she has shown.
And did you get any chance to watch much of the Judiciary Committee
I
hearings?
didn't get a chance to see any of it, unfortunately.
The fact that Republicans.
There was $1.9 billion that was in this most recent omnibus bill that's been carried over to finish the border wall. Is this administration going to finish the border wall?
Just so we're clear, the $1.9 billion wasn't rescinded. New money was not provided. The administration had a policy asking Congress to rescind that funding from 2021. Congress did not. But Congress did not provide additional money. And we are spending, as GAO has told this committee and others, that OMB, the president, the administration is acting within the bounds of the Empowerment and Control Act, and we are spending, obligating prudently.
So this administration just continues to withhold the $1.9 billion that was appropriated several Congresses ago that has stayed in the account?
Thankfully, GAO has agreed that we are obligating prudently under the law.
And what are you obligating it to? Because you're not doing any construction. So are you just paying people to hold the rusting materials?
No, we're actually doing environmental restoration, something that was woefully lacking. We're also doing community consultation. I think that's important to many of you who represent constituents.
How can Democrats avoid being blamed by Republican candidates for inflation and the prospect of recession as they head out on the campaign trail?
Well, Joe Biden has done a very good job under difficult circumstances as it relates to the economy.
We have a 4:15 out, so we're going to need to go. But just send us any other questions you have in the press office.
What happened to Jake Sullivan?
With Jake Sullivan.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We're going to have record tax receipts. You can tie that to inflation, whatever you want to tie it to. Do we need to raise more revenue from or redeploy the way we spend it at this point, whether it's non-discretionary or make sure we're spending it effectively? Because we're going to have a record amount of revenues. Now, I understand there's a lot of pressure from the progressive wing to get at a lot of the billionaire money. But is that punitive, or is it necessary that we do that to fund the government's needs? It seems like we have plenty and should be looking at the expense side of things. And I wonder if you think we should be spending another, I don't know, whatever the latest Build Back Better is going to look like. Doesn't look like what it had looked like. Were you in favor of adding that to what we've already spent on the pandemic the last couple of years? And that you actually can bring down the deficit by spending more? You've heard that argument, Speaker Pelosi.
Well, there's a lot of questions in there, so let me try to unpack them. I think to your first question, I think the answer is both. We need to be very thoughtful about both the expenditure and the revenue side of our budget. What you see in the budget that we released yesterday is actually deficits coming down by $1.3 trillion this year, and that's a function of both. That's a function of rolling off some of the emergency spending programs that were put in place by the prior administration, this administration.
That's mostly pandemic spending. And that's another. I don't know if we should be demagoguing that, bringing the deficit down when everybody knows that it's because we're not going to spend so much on the pandemic and emergency relief. We're still increasing everything.
Well, but that wasn't a guaranteed thing.
Look pretty different. So should we expect an updated analysis from this administration on that front to take into account the invasion? And also, just in terms of the timeline, do you all have an estimate for when people can expect things to level out again? Can we expect that during this calendar year?
So we will be doing a mid-session update of our budget later this summer. That is typically what we do. And obviously for next year's budget, we will use a new budget that will not be quite as old, at least for next year. Outside forecasters who have been, who are studying this as well, expect that inflation will be higher than they were anticipating back when we locked our budget, so then at the beginning of the year before the invasion. But they do expect that as we learn to maintain economic activity while we are still working through this pandemic, while supply chains continue to improve, although obviously there's uncertainty there with, for example, lockdowns in China, but we expect them to work through that we expect supply chain challenges to ease. We do expect inflation to ease this year and into next year.
Wages are up, and all of that was accomplished while reducing the deficit by more than $350 billion. Republicans lie about the economy, lie about President Biden's record.
Up. You've seen prices at the pump go up. And so essentially what you're seeing in this proposed budget is more of this administration's anti-energy, anti-fossil fuel push, right? He's looking overseas to OPEC. He's looking at Qatar for natural gas and essentially saying we're going to take away any of the looser regulations that President Trump gave you to have this industry hum along. And so this is also going to contribute to the problems that consumers are seeing and households are seeing, right? Some of their biggest costs are food and energy. They like to strip that out when they look at inflation, and those numbers are still even bad, Harris. So this is what I'm talking about. These are the contributing factors that are going to take us down a very, very dangerous path. You can't take and keep taxing people to death where they feel like they have no future or it's not even worth going to work after a certain point.
Removed from power, is that what you're saying? And
No, what I was expressing just what I said. I was expressing the moral outrage I felt towards this man. I wasn't articulating a policy change. And I think that, he continues on this course